And we've all heard about the challenges in healthcare today, right? They're huge. And right in the middle of it all, you've got our nurse leaders. But here's the thing. How do we actually train them to be great leaders? It turns out the way we're doing it creates two totally different ways of thinking, two mindsets. And figuring out that difference, well, that might just be the key to fixing some of the biggest problems we see on the hospital floor.
Let's just kick things off with a number that, honestly, it's pretty shocking. A recent study found that nurses are 1.5 times more likely to walk away from their jobs just because of a bad boss. Let that sink in for a second. That's not a small number. It's a straight line connecting poor leadership directly to the nursing shortage we hear so much about.
So that really begs the big question, doesn't it? If leadership is that critical, how in the world do we start building better leaders from day one of their training? Well, a brand new study just looked at this, comparing undergrad and graduate nursing students, and it gives us this really fascinating roadmap to follow. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll dig into this leadership crisis. Then, we'll meet our two different leaders, the frontline view and the executive view. We'll see what they agree on, expose a pretty shocking skill gap, and then wrap up with how we can actually build the leaders we need for tomorrow. Okay, first things first, let's really get a handle on the stakes here, because we're not just talking about, different management styles or personality quirks. This is a full-on crisis, the kind where leadership can literally make or break the entire healthcare system. And the numbers, they're just stark. We're looking at a global nursing shortage of over 9 million by 2030. And think about this. In just the last year or so, almost 1 out of every 5 registered nurses left their position. And the key takeaway, the thing we absolutely can't ignore, is that research keeps telling us the same thing over and over. Great leadership keeps great nurses. And keeping great nurses, well, that's everything when it comes to patient care. So let's dive into our first group. These are the undergraduate students, the ones working toward their Bachelor of Science in Nursing, or BSN. Think of them as the future frontline leaders, the ones who will be right there at the patient's bedside, making critical decisions. The study paints a picture of two totally different journeys. On one path, you have the BSN students. You could say they have the micro view. Their entire world is their unit, their team, the patient right in front of them. It's all about the here and now. But then on the other path, you've got the graduate students, the MS students. They're being trained for the macro view, the 30,000-foot perspective of the entire hospital or healthcare system. And, nothing sums up this frontline micro view better than this quote from one of the BSN students. They said, "Practice active listening. Employees like to be heard. See, it's all about that human connection. It's about the nitty-gritty, day-to-day stuff that makes a team click." And yeah, the data totally backs this up. When you ask BSN students what's most important for a leader, look at what they say. Leadership comes in at 58%, and right behind it, communication at 55%. It's all focused on one thing, managing the team that's right there in the trenches with you. Okay, so now let's flip the coin and look at the other side of this. We're talking about the Master of Science students, the folks being groomed for those big executive roles. And just listen to the contrast in this quote from an MS student. "Be a visionary, keep the big picture, and do not get lost in the weeds." Wow. We're not talking about daily huddles anymore, are we? This is about strategy, about seeing the future. It's about steering the whole ship, not just rowing the boat. Their priorities? They absolutely reflect this massive shift in thinking. For MS students, communication is still king, an incredible 83%. But it's a different kind of communication, right? It's about sharing a vision. Leadership is still huge, at 52%. But hang on, look at this new piece of the pie that just showed up. Business skills. 40% of them said this was a top priority. And that is a game changer we are definitely coming back to. So you've got these two very different ways of looking at the world, the micro and the macro. But there's some common ground. There are some skills that are so fundamental, so universal, that it doesn't matter if you're a frontline manager or a C-suite exec, everyone agrees they are non-negotiable. So what are these golden rules of nursing leadership? Well, right at the top of the list, effective communication and managing relationships. Makes sense, right? But they also agreed on things like how to build a team, being accountable for your actions, and having a rock-solid ethical core so you can fight for your patients and your staff. These are like the foundation of the entire house. You can't build a leader without them. Okay, so we've got the two mindsets. We know where they overlap, but this study found something else, something that wasn't on the map, a gap. And I mean a massive, jaw-dropping gap that really gets to the core of whether we're preparing our nurses for what healthcare is really like today. Because let's just be real for a second.
A hospital isn't just a place of healing. It's also a business, a very complex one. So where does that piece of the puzzle fit into leadership training? The answer from this study is, well, it's pretty complicated.
And here it is. This is the single most stunning takeaway from the entire study. Are you ready? When they asked the BSN students, the future frontline leaders, how many of them saw business skills as a leadership priority, the answer was 0. 0%, not one student. Meanwhile, for the graduate students, over 40% said it was critical. That's the gap we're talking about.
And let's zoom in on that, because the details make it even more wild. Financial management, 0% for BSN students. Human resources, 0. Information tech, 0. A complete blackout. Now look over at the MS students. Almost half say finance is key. More than half point to HR. And strategic management, a whopping 90%. It's not just a gap, you guys. It's like they're living in two completely different universes.
So the big question is, what now? What do we do with this kind of information? Because this research isn't just about pointing out a problem. It's a call to action. It's basically a blueprint for how we can start building the kind of nurse leaders that our future desperately needs. And the study lays out 3 really clear, practical recommendations. First, start integrating basic finance and economics way earlier. Get it into the BSN programs. Second, for the grad students, go even deeper on the big picture stuff like governance and planning for who comes next. And third, and this is a big one, make financial education mandatory for all nurses in clinical and management jobs, not just the students. Which leaves us with this one final, really challenging thought to chew on. In today's healthcare world, which is so complex, so stretched for resources, is it possible that knowing the business side of things is becoming just as important for a nurse leader as knowing the clinical side? Based on this research, the answer seems to be a loud, clear yes.